Hello, everyone. My name is Sumeet Verlikov. I'm the founder of Tilden Global Education. We have a very special guest today as well. We have Ishan Pandit.
Hi, sir. How are you?
I'm doing extremely well, Ishan. It's lovely to have you. Ishan, of course, is a newly admitted Wharton MBA applicant, and the reason why we are having this call today is to kind of understand his journey, understand where he came from, how his process experience was, and also understand a bit about his background. So maybe that's what we can start with, which is your background, Ishan. So do you want to maybe take people through maybe a quick background about who you are?
Yeah, I'd love to. Hey everyone. My name is Ishan Pandit. I just graduated from IIT Bombay. I majored in mechanical engineering and I also did dual minors in computer science and AI. I actually started out enjoying tech quite a lot. So I did a couple of tech internships, but then found myself in the non-tech world through McKinsey. So I landed the McKinsey internship and eventually a PPO. And that was actually the start of my MBA journey, so to speak. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. And apart from academics, I really enjoy music. I'm very passionate about it. I've been playing the piano and the guitar since I was four. And yeah, that's definitely a very big passion of mine. So yeah.
And he does a mean job of playing the guitar. I've seen him in person, like at least in a video doing that, and that was awesome. So, all right, let's talk about the entire thing now. Um, you have always been into tech. Now, knowing what I know about Ishan is that you decided on the MBA much later than what normally people do. Which is toward the end of your third year as such, right? So could you
Yeah.
maybe take the viewers through sort of the different steps and how you decided that maybe MBA was something that you wanted to explore?
Yeah. Pretty much till the end of third year, actually, I'd only worked in tech specific domains and I had a couple of data science internships, and that was what I was imagining myself doing on later. But then I also got shortlisted into McKinsey during my third year in college. And after that internship, that was when I actually first started even considering the other side. And then I was speaking to a lot of my batchmates and also seniors. I think that is the first thing which actually started the mindset shift. So I spoke to a couple of batchmates who were telling me about how different opportunities are there in the MBA side. And till then, because I was very much sure that I will apply for masters, and in fact, before my MBA, I did apply in the in the masters programs as well. But in the end, like I decided upon MBA because uh, it was essentially during some of my research projects that my shift sort of shifted from less from the technical side and the coding aspect of things. That's actually a big reason that coding is something which I don't fully enjoy, and that was what got me into sort of the more business aspect of things and understanding things more broadly and a more breadth-based understanding of business in general. And that was what initially got me thinking about MBA. And then once I spoke to seniors and my batchmates, a lot of them actually told me I myself did not know very well that my profile was probably more suited for the MBA route. So I actually very much underestimated myself in that way because I never thought of myself as a non-core applicant during my 4 years in college because I was always focusing on tech and music. So, but then I spoke to them and they sort of opened my understanding that okay, maybe I should give it a shot. And since it is the last year that I'll get to apply in a deferred process site. So I was like, okay, let's maybe not leave any regrets and let's just give it a shot and let's see what happens. And luckily, it turned out pretty well.
That's awesome. So obviously he Ishan had lots of interview calls. Obviously, he's taking up Wharton, but he also had calls from MIT, Sloan, Booth, Columbia. So all of these big schools. Yeah. But again, coming maybe right if somebody has decided that an MBA, they're not 100% sure, but they're interested. So from that spark of yeah, you know what, maybe I can go for an MBA, to how you ended up firming up that decision. Could you maybe give people some insights on how you sort of went about that process?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first time that spark came into my mind, it was actually during my internship when I was speaking to the people I was working with in my McKinsey team, right? So most of them were associates and they had come just post their MBAs. So I'd spoken a lot to them about their experience and how it contrasted with mine because me coming from an engineering background. That was the first thing, like just the way they spoke, they communicated, the different way of thinking they had about certain problems. And it's very much different from the engineering mindset which we come with. So that was the first thing. And then I spoke to a couple of seniors who were interested in this. So I spoke to Gehenna, who was a senior of mine who was in McKinsey, and she got into MIT Sloan. And she was someone I definitely spoke a lot to, and she gave me a very good idea of the whole process as well, and gave me a good idea of how the whole thing goes in, what the different aspects and specific things are in an MBA, which maybe I can consider because she also knew about my technical side of the profile. So then that was what got me going. I think if there's any student who is watching, I think the first thing you should do is just talk to seniors,
Hmm.
specifically people who have done, who have like gone down the same path and who are just a bit ahead of you, because they'll have the exact roadmap and they'll have the current roadmap of what works right now. Because of course there are a lot of senior people maybe in your family who have done MBA in the previous times, but of course if you're targeting an M7 MBA or something, it's better to talk to the people who have actually done that application process. So just do that. And then very much important is just to do your own research as well. So go through the schools yourself, look at their curriculum, and try to see if an MBA does make sense for you and which school specifically. And I think that should get the ball rolling pretty well. And then, yeah, then you can maybe talk to a consultant like Sumeet, and I think that will make the whole process very much easier as well.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for that. I mean, I'll kind of now I'm addressing folks whom, let's say, may not come from a college where, a lot, you may have seniors who might have applied and might have also gotten in. It doesn't matter who you talk to. Like, it doesn't need to be a senior. You can speak with, Ishan, you can speak with a lot of
Yeah.
bunch of people, right, who have done this. And I'm sure that a lot of people would be really, open to doing that. You can also go through a lot of the videos that we have on the Tilden YouTube channel. There's a bunch of videos, and we try to keep it very natural and honest so that you really understand, what were people's profiles and so on and so forth, right? So we will basically also be keep on publishing content here. So you can subscribe, and obviously, happy to also connect with you at a one-on-one, if you reach out to me on LinkedIn for sure. Let's kind of talk about the process in that case, right? So once you, like, you started, right? Could you, for the listener, could you talk about what were some of the steps in brief, of course? What were the different steps you followed till the time you applied and, beyond applications?
Yeah. So I think the first step once you decide is sort of thinking about a core theme which you have in your mind and the core motivation which you have for applying to an MBA. I think that initial time when you spend with just your stories and your experiences and when you try to consolidate them into a strong narrative, I think that's a very important part of the whole process. And then the three main structural parts of the whole application process start. So first is of course the test. So you can either give the GMAT or the GRE. Then second is the recommendations. So most schools I think require a maximum of two recommendations. So as long as you have that, should be good. And then the third thing is of course the essays. So each different school has different prompts, different number of essays as well. And the whole process of trying to map your narrative to a particular prompt and trying to bring out the best of your own story within those prompts. Yeah,
Hmm.
that is basically the three main structural parts of the whole process. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Great. So basically, when you kind of worked on the application, right? How did you sort of, go about, firming up what you wanted to communicate to the admissions committee? Could you talk about, without obviously revealing anything proprietary, which you consider proprietary? Maybe besides that, could you talk about, how did you really kind of, how did the process happen daily? What did you do weekly? Kind of just help people sort of live that experience of actually applying.
Yeah. So I think initially, you and your mentor sort of, my mentor was Sumeet. So we initially sat quite a lot and properly finalized the story which we wanted to go forward with. And that's actually a very important part because there might be a lot of people with similar profiles to you who might be applying. And you never want your profile to get lost in the crowd, right? So there's always a certain unique aspect in a particular profile or a particular resume which you want to try to highlight and you want to make sure that the whole profile sort of sings that unanimously and highlights that very well. So that initially we had a lot of discussions about that and how we can sort of finalize the theme. And then specifically during the essay writing, I think one of the best things is the iterations which we did on specific essays. So for example, I would have my first draft for a particular essay, let's say a Columbia essay. Then I would get an iteration with feedback. So for example, I did this thing wrong. I should maybe add this point and so on and so forth. Those specific iterations which were like specific to each school, they were very, very helpful because each school has different things which they prioritize. And that is something which is highlighted very well with the personalized feedback. And that one-on-one time which I got in actually properly rectifying and polishing my essays, that was I think it definitely really helped me get quite a lot of interview calls. And that was a very important, I think probably the most important part pre-interviews was the essay writing process. So yeah.
Lovely, and obviously you did phenomenal there as such. So when you're thinking about the entire process, right? People always feel that when you're thinking about a M7 school, a top school, you need a perfect profile, right? You need a perfect GPA, you need a perfect score, and so on and so forth. So what's your take now that you've gone through the process? You've also seen other people, right, who have gotten into different schools. So what would you say to people who are self-doubting or even self-rejecting whether they are good enough, right? So what would you tell them?
I think the first thing is definitely there is no fixed rule to decide what profile is good or not. Like for in my case, if I talk about myself, I didn't have a single strong position of responsibility during my college year. The best thing I had was mentorship and TA-ship. That was all. And there were so many people who apply for consulting internships and then eventually deferred MBA programs. They have amazing PRs and great for them. But like that was something which I always felt ki, how can I even compete with anyone else? Because I just don't have that specific thing. But later on through the process, I find out that there are much more different things which I can highlight about myself, which maybe other applicants won't have. And that process, that introspection which you do during this process is actually something which is very, very, it brings a lot of happiness to you in a way because it sort of makes yourself understand yourself a bit more and sort of understand, oh, this is how other people might look at me, and oh, this is something which is so nice and so unique to myself, and not typically about the standard perfect profile which people have like sort of made up in their minds. And I think definitely like trust me, I'm being so honest here that I was definitely not fully confident. I was not even sure I'll get good interview calls, but when those interview calls started coming, that's when I knew that's when you actually get that faith. No, no, I it was a good choice. And like there is no such thing that one small flaw in your profile, which you might think is a flaw, that doesn't make a very big difference. As long as you have a good story and a good way of presenting it, everything can work out. So it's definitely self belief is a very important part in this whole process because it does take a lot of time. So yeah, you should have that for sure.
I mean, just building on what Ishan you said. I mean, this is again just talking about the full-time MBA process, the deferred process, of course, and even other programs like MFin, like top universities. We've seen the biggest challenge sometimes is self-doubt and self-rejection, right? There are a lot of people who do not want to apply to top schools because they fear getting rejected. But here's the thing, if you do not apply, you anyways are not going to get in, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's a big thing that you really must ask yourself. The other thing is, as Ishan beautifully pointed out, he did not have a position of responsibility. Similarly, let me tell you, there have been people who have worked with us who have a sub 600 score in terms of GMAT, and people have gotten into Harvard, right? There are people who have not had any single internship, but they've had other sort of tracks which have been phenomenal and they've still been managed to do well, right? In terms of the full time, there have been people who have not worked for brand name organizations or they have had, some issues or challenges in GPA, right? Uh, are these ideal? Are these gaps ideal? No, they're not. Obviously, we don't want to have gaps, right? But what I think conclusively, what these admits prove is that these gaps can be overcome to some extent, right? If you're giving the admissions committee less of something, can you give them more of something in some other area? Right. So that is the way I would like you guys to think, as you sort of think about your full-time MBA process or a deferred MBA process or any other process that you're looking at for universities abroad and some top Indian schools as well. All right. So enough of my sermoning. I guess I would, return to Ishan and then ask you about, if you kind of look back at your own process, um, think what would you do differently, or in other words, what are like maybe the top two or three biggest pieces of advice that you would give to people who are watching this video?
yeah. I think the first advice is something I think Sumeet will definitely guess is you should start as early as you can whenever you finalize the process because it takes much
Absolutely.
more time than you would think. Yeah. And I think I am a very prime example of matlab, you really should the more time you have, the more effort you'll be able to put into your essays, and it won't be a rushed job because I know for sure some of my earlier essays for the earlier schools were not as polished as my later schools. And I got lucky that Wharton is the usually the last school
Yes.
which has like the last deadline. So
Mm.
Luckily, by Wharton, my ideas were very concrete and my writing was very polished. But before that, like, yeah, that's a big part that you should definitely start early. And I think that's something which a lot of people will tell you. And I think the second important thing would be, I personally think that you should try to uh, truly introspect and truly enjoy that process. I think I mentioned it before as well, but just giving a brief example of my own case. So I had done some research experiences well, and I had a couple of research projects which I had done. And usually nobody would consider that to be something which would be which would make a big impact in an MBA profile. But since
Mm.
that research experience was actually pretty well related to what I wanted my long-term goals to be and how I portrayed them in the MBA profile, that actually ended up being one of the very key experiences which got
Absolutely.
me in the end to Wharton. And like
Yeah.
just understanding that maybe you don't really understand when some of the experiences you have in the previous time how they can actually impact your future applications. And that introspection, try to enjoy it a lot and try to make the most of everything you have done so far and don't regret anything. I think you should, whatever choices you've made in the past, just try to find the best in everything, and I'm pretty sure things will work out in the end and you will find the path you wish to go forward with. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I completely second that. In fact, what I would say is that when you're applying, think as much in advance as you can. Obviously, try to speak with people, try to speak with, obviously, watch a lot of these videos, of course, that we have. Speak with mentors like Ishan, speak with folks who have done well, right? Speak with them and then obviously make up your own mind, but start early because a lot of the stuff that you may not have in your profile can be bettered. And if you just have time, you can just work on those things rather than waiting late. In fact, a lot of people actually start the entire process even before they have a GMAT score, right? And a lot of people statistically actually do better. I mean, if you look at the biggest probability of people who do well are the people who start early, in general. So obviously it's something that I would definitely echo with Ishan. And yeah, I mean, again, ending this particular call, I wanted to thank you, Ishan, from the bottom of my heart. I think it was a wonderful experience working with you. You did make our lives a bit difficult sometimes, but it's all in good spirit. And I'm very, very happy that we like stuck to the guns, got it done. Ultimately, it's all ended well. I'm very, very delighted for you. So all the very best. And yeah, look forward to, something amazing coming from you in the future as well.
Yeah, it's been an amazing experience talking to you as well. Again, it's been so long since we had such a conversation, and yeah, I think definitely a big shout out because by being so close to the deadlines, I think I don't know how I myself would have handled me if I was on the other side. But I think thank you so much for sticking with me till the end, and I'm like I couldn't have asked for a better process in the end. I got to learn a lot, especially through even the interviews. I think we couldn't mention that, but the interview process is also something which definitely will stick with me together. All the learnings I've had about how to carry yourself in an interview and all those things. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey so far, and I'm really glad I could share a bit of this with you and anyone who's watching this video. And yeah, feel free to hit me up if you guys have any doubts, and I'd love to clear those. Thank you.
Absolutely. So with that, we will end up this particular discussion. So if you want to obviously reach Ishan, obviously he's there on LinkedIn. I'm there on LinkedIn. You can always reach out to me. You can also reach out to the Tilden support team. They are amazing bunch of folks who like just kind of have like 1,000 coordinations and they do it every single time really really well. So that's connect@tilden.in, which is connect@tilden.in. So you can always reach out to them, share your resume, LinkedIn profile, and they will be happy to kind of obviously look you up and help you and see, point you in the right direction per se. All right. So with that, thank you again, and yeah, we'll end the call. And thanks, Ishan, again. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.